Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Morning Skate podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell. The birds are singing, the flowers are smelling wonderful. DJ's internet is back and better than ever. That's right, it's opening night, NHL regular season. We've got a 3-game slate on deck. You can turn $5 into $50K. Let's get into it.
You're saying they're looking like an idiot.
Well, this is that any different than normal?
This is the first time I will admit was unbelievably wrong.
DJ, we're back. One day after our season preview. How you doing? You ready for this 3-gamer?
This is going great so far. I do not know what's going on. It was working perfectly after restarting everything, and now it sucks again. What did you say? How is this?
How you doing?
All right, you know what? I'm turning off the blur. The blur seems to be causing an issue. As soon as I turned it off, everything went back to normal. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let's start with that.
Yes, you sound great. How are you doing, good sir?
You know, honestly, it's been a great day. I've been super excited for the NHL season to begin. I've been drafting some teams after getting home, and everything is just going perfectly in my world. And then as soon as I clicked on StreamYard, my internet just evaporated into a fine powder, and I've restarted everything. And it's, I think, only working when I'm not using Blur. I don't know how that could affect anything, but now it's working fine. So
yeah,
you get to see
perfect.
my entire couch. Congratulations.
The people have been clamoring for weeks to get a glimpse at that couch, and here we are. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a quick show relative to most Morning Skate podcast extravaganzas because there's only 6 teams to talk about. Obviously, with opening night in the fold, we've got massive contests, even though it's a 3-game slate. I will note before we get into things, please remember that the contest locks at 5 p.m. Eastern. I suspect there will be overlay as a result of this. But, we will see. But just, keep that in mind because your normal process will not apply when the game's locked 2 hours earlier than normal. Obviously, you can update your lineup even if you don't submit it until 8 o'clock where the second game starts. But, the Florida Panthers play the Chicago Blackhawks, so you probably don't want to miss lock. But yeah, we've got decent offerings across the lobby on DK. We've got some underdog contests that look pretty nice. $2,000 to first in their main NHL daily for tomorrow. And yeah, just be on the lookout for overlay. I mean, it's a weird day. It's a big day, but you got to keep your eyes peeled.
Even a $15 5K to first showdown for the 10:30 game for Colorado, LA is nothing to scoff at. I mean, nothing to, it's pretty good all around. Got to be happy if you're a DFS NHL fan. I got 4 or 5 tickets to the $5 one in preseason, so I'm already getting some thoughts together before we started the show. And I mean, it really feels like there's a lot of ways that you could turn to that feel really chalky, but 3 games is enough to hopefully keep some of the ownership at bay, although there will be some options in that 5 o'clock game that I'm sure are piled on quite a bit. I don't know if there's really all that much to go over. We recorded yesterday. I think one of our stronger podcasts probably ever, because we actually prepped a decent bit, and I was re-listening to it and being like, oh, this is what professionals sound like, except we still don't sound like professionals saying like Arthur Shelovs instead of the proper names. But more than that, I do think it just goes to show when we put a little elbow grease into the podcasts, things come together. And I'm using elbow grease a lot today because Cam Neely was like, you know what we did this offseason? We needed some more elbow grease and more jam in our lineup. So like Cam Neely, I'm going to put more of that into the show myself and see if it bears fruit,
God,
if you will.
That sounds heavenly. Of course, my main contribution is the Excel sheet that I will go through vociferously every day, updating all the lines, everything we got. I do have some R code that I might be able to post this separately. If any, I'm not just going to do it in Discord because it's a fuck ton of work and I don't want to commit to that sort of thing. But if there's an appetite for it, maybe I can do a Patreon something or other. But let's just get into things. I mean, we can talk about other strategy bits and pieces as we go. But yeah, the first game is Chicago heading into Florida. Obviously, not quite the matchup that maybe they were expecting when they first planned this out on the schedule, though I guess they should have known Matthew Tkachuk would be out. But no Tkachuk, no Alex Barkov. We've got a different looking Florida team in store. And here is Chicago. Got to figure out the old settings that we normally use to look at this. I think we go on the bottom. I feel like the boxes used to be smaller.
I love being on the bottom, don't you? Yes. Wherever you want to put us, baby. There we go. I think that's fine.
I think this is fine. Yeah.
While you're meandering, we'll just shout out Diego in the chat. Boys are back, fired up on fantasy. I mean, we're gonna talk about Zibanejad, of course, in the second game. 45% seems a little aggressive. Mike, we're not gonna bash ESPN. We're big supporters of the ESPN brand. I'm a loyal subscriber of all the ESPN nonsense that I pay for and never think about. Yeah. So it's not like the thing about bashing ESPN is like, there's just so much of it that you got to be specific. You can't just bash the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think
DJ, don't you know?
I'm sorry.
Go woke, go broke, DJ.
I had not heard this yet. This is this is new to me. I don't partake in the interwebs.
All right, Bates is down bad. Tunes into the podcast and immediately auto drafts Barkov. That's a tough scene. But yeah, obviously, this is not a Best Puck stream. If you want more Best Puck content, believe it or not, I actually did a stream today on Davis Maddox's channel.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Well, come in the Discord once and ever, and you'll see that I added everyone with the link to it. But so yeah, I did that. I mean, obviously, we've been talking about it nonstop, so just go back and DJ's YouTube channel or on my newsletter.
It does make a lot of sense that someone who's really never been in a live final than Davis Maddox would have someone on that's never won the Best Puck championship. So I get why he didn't ask me. That makes sense, actually. Now that I was getting jealous at first, but there's no reason to be jealous.
I feel like you should just be like a paid subscriber to his YouTube channel and participate in his Discord, and then maybe he'll know who the fuck you are.
All right. I mean, I think he knows of me. I'm a champion, so I know of champions myself.
Jesus Christ.
Let's get into the slate before Matt kills me.
I'm so fucking angry. Oh
yeah.
God.
All right. Yep.
All right.
You know what? We'll give one last shout out to Mike though, because I actually am really excited for TJ Oshie. He's been on like a number of podcasts I've listened to, and he's been like really, really insightful. I think he's gonna be a really, really good addition. So I'm excited to see what they do this season. Don't take any of our negativity. I feel like if I worked at a company and people like weren't talking about it, that would be a bad thing. It's a good thing that people are talking about it. It's better to continue to learn from really smart people like Matt. And I probably ignore half of what I say. So yes, Bates, I do have access to the Secret Champions Lounge. I didn't get a ring. I kind of hinted at it like 30 times to Rudman. I think he probably blocked me because I was never getting a championship ring for Best Puck Classic. We should get into the slate though. Like I said before, Matt leaves the podcast forever. Game one, first and foremost, there will be some gambling to be had. There is 50% profit boost for opening night in the NHL. We'll mention a few notes. The Blackhawks are at the Florida Panthers. It's a -285 as of recording for the Florida Panthers, unsurprisingly, as the Blackhawks are terrible. A 5.5. It's the lowest total on the slate. That under. Oh no, it's not. It is actually the highest total on the slate. I'm not looking correctly. The over -115. Yeah, that makes it. Wait, no. Holy crap! I'm going to stop talking. They're all like the exact same thing. The under is the lowest total by like a fraction of a pubic hair. Matt, any initial thoughts on this game before I try to read again?
I find it strange that all of these are 5.5 totals. We've got two pretty poor teams, obviously. So, it's not like the Rangers and Panthers have low team totals by any stretch. But I do believe that in years past we've seen October be pretty sloppy, and then the games get cleaner from there as the teams narrow in on how they want to play because coaches want to play defensive. But anyway, So that doesn't really matter for our purposes, but there is no one game that stands out. Obviously, Colorado LA is a pretty fair fight relative to the other two matchups, but we're still in the range of like 70% to win, maybe 75% for Florida. So it's not a guaranteed that either of these teams take the W. So starting on the Chicago front, we have Burakovsky, Bedard, Donato, Teravainen, Nazar, Bertuzzi. On defense, we have Matt Grzelcyk, who signed a contract and made the team with Sam Renzel, Wyatt Kaiser with Artem Levshinov, and then the bottom six. I got to admit, there's only 3 games, but if you're dipping into the Chicago bottom six, you've probably fucked up somewhere. So I will just say that much. And we are expecting Spencer Knight to start for Chicago. Quick tutorial if you're new here or forget what the sheet means. Obviously, we have their DK salary as the first column. So Connor Bedard's the most expensive player on Chicago at $6,000 on Tuesday night. And by the way, if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, obviously this is over on DJ's YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/@NHLDJ. The next 2 columns are expected fantasy points per game and actual fantasy points per game. This is based on the second half of last season. So I basically just took the last 40 games. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to update this with the current events until probably 5, 6, 7, 8 games into the year, at which point I'll also start updating the rainbow chart sheet that I post every day in the Discord. But for now, we're just going with what we have from last year and our takes, because that's all that matter here. The next 3 columns are last year's stats indexed, so that one is the league average for their position and for their age group. So just trying to keep an eye on, prospects who are good versus, other prospect age guys and prime age guys versus other prime age guys, so on and so forth, just to see like how good they are at each category: DK points, shot attempts for, and primary points. Next up in the yellow, we have the minors stats for them. Obviously, some players have just been in the NHL since I've tracked this and don't have stats. Others, you see their season, how they were indexed for shots, for points, and then how many games they played, what age they were, and what league it was in. Finally, prospect status, where they were drafted, how Corey Prodman and Scott Wheeler rank them. Wheeler's is specifically a fantasy ranking, by the way, so keep an eye on that. And then on the far right, we have their 3 years before last all indexed together, just to sort of show the long-term trends for these players. That's a quick tutorial of the sheets. Let's talk about the players. Obviously, Connor Bedard is where this offense begins and ends. DJ, do you have any interest in a perfectly correlated 12K Teravainen, Frank Nazar, Tyler Bertuzzi second line on the first power play?
No, I mean, I think if I'm stacking it, it's just through Bedard and hoping they do something at 5-on-5. But in reality, I don't really love this game from a pace perspective. Like losing Barkov, you could try to argue makes it more interesting almost to play Chicago. Of course, he's a really good defensive center that is always in really going to win the Selke, it feels like, when fully healthy. A lot of that is warranted, but I think it just makes everything more boring. No Barkov, no Matt Tkachuk. It's going to be a lot more, grinders. That's how Florida's going to play. And I think I'm just fading this game entirely is going to be my plan. I think a lot of people are going to stack Florida pretty heavily, maybe a one-off piece on the Florida side, if anything. But if I am playing Chicago, and in reality, I'm going to have Renzel. Like, he looks way too good in preseason and shooting just so much that I don't know how you avoid it. Him and Grzelcyk being paired together makes me think that they're absolutely using them as the offensive zone starters as much as possible. So when they get opportunity, it's going to be them out there. They're probably going to see as much run with the top 6 as possible as they try to keep up with Florida. Of course, they're underdogs for a reason, and throw out the bottom 6 to cover up what is now a very odd looking Florida top 6. So again, I have a lot of faith in this game being incredibly high pace. Hopefully Spencer Knight revenge narrative can get there, because the rest of this lineup, like you're pointing out with Dickinson and McCabe, I think that's where you're going to go. That is a shutdown. That is not terrible.
They were pretty good. They were pretty good last year in that shutdown role. Obviously, they're on the road, so I don't think Florida will be sending out anyone good against them. But for future notice, also worth noting, Alex Vlasic is hurt for Chicago. It doesn't seem like he'll play tomorrow. He didn't practice today, for example. But his status means a lot, I think, to just Chicago team. It makes your top 4 look a whole lot better if he's there instead of Wyatt Kaiser. So just a note, especially for the Florida side, obviously with Vlasic not being totally DFS relevant. I agree with you on Sam Rinzel. It's very clear that they really like him. I wouldn't be surprised if Levshunov gets some run, as a premium guy later on in the year. But at least to start, they've been very consistent with their Rinzel praise and their deployment of him on the top power play. And Connor Bedard is definitely going to be a play I make. It might be on my main team. I'm not sure. Ryan Donato at 4,300 as his line mate was the only other productive Blackhawk last year, but he's not going to be on the top power play to start. So that's one thing to sort through. But as far as the per minute stuff, Donato was the guy you wanted to have last year. Like, he was just excellent. Him being less expensive than Andrei Burakovsky makes that a very clear target. Like, you can full stack the top line if you want, but if you're mini stacking Bedard, it's either Donato or Rinzel for me. I don't have much interest in Teravainen and Nazar and Bertuzzi. Kind of feels like ass. So
I just I don't see how that line clicks. I really don't. I'm gonna have to say, but really the only way it clicks is if Frank Nazar is much better immediately than I think he'll be, and I think he's gonna be a good player. Like, I'm not really trying to besmirch the good name of Frank Nazar yet. I think he's, but it's gonna be a really tough opening night for him to get there, in my opinion, with two anchors.
He was better in the AHL than I guess I realized or suspected. So if, like, Nazar is the exact kind of guy where if he's shooting early and often, like, he's got the talent profile, 13th overall pick, top 50 prospect for both these guys that I keep track of. So if he's showing signs, then definitely jump on. But for now, flanked by Teravainen and Bertuzzi, I'd rather just get it through Bedard and Rinzel.
Yeah. Who was carrying the puck for that line and setting him up to make, like, I just feel like that line's going to be a black hole, unfortunately.
I think Nazar and Teravainen are fine enough in that regard.
Like, Nazar has to show that skating ability. But we can move on because, like we're saying, it's not a great stack, and some people might jam it in to game stack this game because the Florida side is really cheap, all things considered. It's pretty obvious where to go with, like, any guys on the power play and pieces around it that feel like good plays, just because they're so cheap, and it's really, like, not hard to fit in whatever you want. So why don't we just start with the top line? Bennett, Marchand, Verhaeghe not in the top power play because I believe he has to be banging the power play coach's daughter or something. I have no idea how he just consistently just cannot have a role on that power play. They're going 2 defensemen. What do you think of the top line in Florida?
I think Marchand's super interesting. This was a guy who all summer long we were just like, he's still good. He showed he has it, but, like, the role is just not going to be there. And then Barkov goes down, and, like, who's the guy who's going to step up and play the Barkov role on the power play? Like, if it's not Verhaeghe, which we're showing it's not, it's got to be Marchand, because Bennett's a net front grinder guy, especially with no Kachuk. Like, there's, that's Bennett's job. Reinhart is going to be in that, bumper area. He can play wide, but with Ekblad and Seth Jones on the top power play, like, Brad Marchand's going to have this puck a whole hell of a lot. He was great last year, just as far as his per minute stats, absolutely no, like, problems as far as looking at his overall profile. I suspect his primary point dip was due to Boston being a tire fire and, Boston being quite good in the years before that. But, like, his shot rate was, just at what we would expect from him. And that's good enough for me at 6K on the top power play against Chicago. But I also like Sam Reinhart. I mean, this Lindell, Luostarinen, and Reinhart line has played together for long stretches of time in the past, and they've been dominant. So Anton Lindell, especially at his price being similar to Luostarinen, is just mispriced. So 4,100 Lindell probably is going to be a top target of mine. Obviously, Reinhart is excellent no matter what, but him playing with Lindell, I think, is a lot better stylistically than Bennett. It's the closest thing to Barkov, obviously. And I think we're going to see Lindell take a huge step forward in terms of filling those shoes that Barkov vacated by tearing his ACL like an asshole, apparently, because I don't know why I phrased it like that. Anyway, Ekblad and Seth Jones, they're both fine. If you need that price tag, I'm not going to say, oh, I love this guy, hate that guy. It's whatever. And then the third line, fourth line, obviously the fourth line's a bunch of no-goes, but Sam Miskevich and Erod is fine, but I just don't think you need the salary on this slate looking through things, and you can get better options elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think people will force that in because it just feels like it has more upside than it probably does. Like I said, I don't love this game. I'd rather game stack elsewhere. I don't. I mean, again, I'm going to play a number of lineups in the $5, so I'll have some various Florida ways to play Florida. I do think like I'm not leaving Verhaeghe out of that mix, even though he's not in the top power play. Like Chicago is pretty bad, and if Florida's scoring in spades, Verhaeghe's very likely involved. So I'm not just like instinctually leaving him off to make a 3-man stack. It's a 3-game slate. If you're going all in on Bennett,
Yeah.
Marchand, go in on Verhaeghe, go in on Reinhart, go in on Seth Jones, make it a 5-man. I mean, that's how you win this slate, in my opinion. So
yeah.
Yeah.
This is not a strategy angle that I think you need to implement, but if you are thinking through things, especially if you're a max enterer, I would guess the Lindell, Lustrine, and Reinhardt line goes out against the Bedard line as sort of like the quasi shutdown matchup. The Bennett line goes against the second line for Chicago, and then the third line matches up with the third line, which is also part of the reason that Erod and Samoskevich are not super interesting to me. I just think that Chicago third line actually has shown they can play a pace down tempo versus I think Teravainen and Nazar Bertuzzi, they could be a defensive black hole, all things considered.
That's exactly my concern with fading entirely on Florida. But my main team, I think I'm going to take that stab and maybe play Spencer Knight. But we can not talk about goalies for a lot longer and get over to, I think the more exciting of the first two games, maybe, I think I like the Colorado LA game the most, but this game's exciting for a lot of different reasons. A lot of new faces in Pittsburgh, which definitely lead to added, DFS potential goodness. It is a minus 225 for the Rangers to 5.5, the highest total. Technically, I'm not going to mess it up this time. Plus 185 on the Penguin side. So not like it's miles and miles apart. I really like a lot of these prospects. Unfortunately, the one I think I like the most isn't on the slate at all, I believe, right? Wait, actually, is Kindle?
Yeah, he's there, 2,500.
Oh, yes. Oh, why did I think he wasn't? Maybe I'm blanking on someone else. Okay. But I do think there's like true, really interesting punts here. Do you need them? No, but I don't think anyone's going to have to play them. So, let's run through Pittsburgh first. Do you have a lot of interest, any interest at all? And are you thinking about maybe taking any of these punts?
Yeah, I think if I had to pick a game, this is the game I want to target. Koivunen, Crosby, Raquel is, I think, the Pittsburgh's 3 best options if they're not going to use Malkin as a winger. So I like that they're just loading up Crosby with, usable line mates. Like, yes, they're saddling Malkin with Anthony Mantha and Justin Brazeau for whatever reason, but,
Weird.
Godspeed to Malkin. Hope you can figure it out. By the way, these NAs, if you're looking at it, are just because they changed teams at the trade deadline, and I don't know how to make my natural stat trick do that without putting in the team that they played for, which is not just one team. It's like, team abbreviation, comma, other team. So it's annoying. I have to do that manually, and I didn't care for these guys. So anyway, they're kind of bad. I have no interest in like stacking Malkin with, like, I would just stack Malkin with his power play line mates is what I would do. But yeah, the top line is really all I'm interested in here. What's interesting or maybe annoying about Dan Muse so far as the new coach in Pittsburgh is that Kindle and Tomasino are not on the power play, power play 2 even. It's Novak, Brazeau, Mantha, Koivunen, and I'm not sure how to say it actually, if it's Brunicki or just Brunick. But Brunick is a pretty good prospect. Pronman has him 104. He's a second rounder just from a year ago. So, a pretty young guy, but he's shown out in the preseason. Doesn't look like much of a fantasy guy based on his WHL stats from last year, but it's a team where there's a lot of opportunity if Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang are going to be on the top power play. So at the minimum, I think you could do a whole lot worse than Brunick or Brunicki here. They didn't announce a starter either, so keep an eye out on that. If it's Jari or Shilovs, that could be very annoying for my Jari best puck bags if they just immediately start Shilovs. But yeah, for me, it's just Koivunen, Crosby, Raquel, Karlsson, Letang are the only guys I'm interested in here. But it's a high level of interest.
I really like if you're doing it going Erik Karlsson. Like, I think we're both sort of on the he can bounce back train, and not even like he bounced back into an extreme level, but like there just is a much better player than we saw statistically last year. Sometimes it seems unlucky. Sometimes it seemed like maybe he just was uninterested, but we know what he has. I think he's like you kind of mentioned on the last show, like eyeing a trade. I'm including him. Like if you're leaving off the defenseman,
Yes.
I think you're doing it wrong again. Overstack. And Pittsburgh won't be very popular.
Yeah, on a 3-game slate, especially, 5-man stacks, even a 6-man like onslaught, I think those are very much in play here. The standard, if you're brand new to hockey or a lapsed DFSer, is typically a 4-3-1 type of build where you're getting 4 guys from one team, usually a defenseman mixed in there, 3 from another team, and then just a one-off somewhere to make everything work, salary and position wise. But yeah, 5-man stacks, even a 6 stack, those are that much in order. One note about Letang versus Carlson is that I believe that Letang has hit the cliff as far as his like productivity is concerned. You look at the 3 years before last, and he and Carlson were relatively similar, and Carlson kind of held that up last year, and Letang just plummeted. And Carlson was not getting the plum power play deployment either. Like he was stuck on the power play too with Letang for stretches. Obviously, Letang had some personal and injury stuff to deal with that Carlson didn't. But that's just my take going into the year for 2 guys who look fairly similar based on everything we're looking at here. So on the Rangers side,
we did get a question here, and it's almost a perfect time, I think, as we transition to make a point. What's a lineup building tip that you guys found helpful in the first few days of the season? I don't know if you will share this sentiment, but I feel like people on small slates for some reason are like less. I just see less game stacks, and I really think early in the season, game stacks, especially on a small slate like this with so much upside, like if a game does go into penalty overdrive for whatever reason, an early cheap shot from I don't know, Matt Rempe, and all of a sudden the game goes into a colossal amount of penalty minutes and ends up being 6-5. Like people are going to look to the Rangers in Florida. You can stack both of them. There's no reason why you couldn't do it. That's going to be the chalk, other than the McKinnon, of course, as well, which we haven't gotten to yet. But there's a very good reason, in my opinion, to think that this game could be the game stack you needed. People are not going to play it that way. So I think don't be afraid to game stack, because any game can get out of hand very quickly with penalties in the NHL.
Yeah, if I had to say one thing, it's just don't be afraid to spend down at goalie. The upside is like much higher for those guys typically. And yes, the floor is also lower, but guess what? We're here to win GPPs, not finish in the 50th percentile. So that is what I will say. But also, I think I just laid out the basic strategy for this slate here. To consider, overstacking and whatnot. So on the Rangers side, Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, Will Cooley, JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad. Both Miller and Panarin practiced in full today. No hesitations or whatever, so it does seem like they are good to go. Adam Fox and Gavrikov, the new addition in the offseason as the bona fide top pair. Adam Fox, top power play as well, but very expensive, $6,500. Carson Soucy, Will Borgen as the second pair. Quite cheap for guys who should get decent run minutes-wise. Haven't really thought through like punt D at this point, but that stands out to me immediately. And then the third line was nobody I expected to be on the team. Connor Sherry, Noah Leba, and Taylor Radish. I had 3 completely different guys here, which is just kind of funny when I was updating things. Obviously, Connor Sherry's kind of a known quantity. He's just a guy type of NHLer. So, nothing real fancy there. Taylor Radish is, I think, worse than just a guy, but, whatever. He's there. And Noah Leba is 2022 4th rounder. Really showed out in preseason though, and he played in college last year and was fine. So whatever, I guess they like him. It's really funny though. Matt Rempe's on the second power play unit. Like they just stuck him in front of the net. They're like, "Hey, good luck, big fella." I expect.
I think you're going to say
just one more thing.
Yep.
I expect the power play one to take the vast majority of the ice time here, so I'm not too worried about that.
That was exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, if you're going to 5-man stack anything, and probably honestly the most popular 5-man stack is going to be Panarin, Trocheck, JT, Zibanejad, and Fox. I know after practice, Mike Sullivan was talking about how Alex Lafreniere is someone they want to mix in on the top power play. They're seeing him as kind of the next guy in, and he will see some looks, but not maybe here. So it's the perfect 5-man stack for the reason you just laid out. I think this game stack is totally viable. I think this will have quite a bit of pace. I said the Rangers are better defensively, but it might take some time for that to come to fruition. A lot of new guys, as you already mentioned, but there's like six guys that are brand new. Could take some time for them to mesh together. And on the other side, the Penguins are not going to roll over and die. Like that Crosby line's really good. It'll be tough to fit it all in. You're going to have to make a concession elsewhere. But I think, the perfect sixth man, if you're going to do it, is probably Will Cooley. Very cheap, good shooter. He's going to be involved. I think he's, one of the stronger forecheckers. So I don't mind making it a sixth man with him if I was going to do it.
Yeah, I like that take. Mika Zibanejad is an early flag plant. I know we had fired up in here talking about his underdog exposure, but Zibanejad's DK price is actually quite fair, 6,300. I do think that might manage to keep some people away who would otherwise be flooding to it if he were priced for his full season production last year. But keep in mind that down the stretch he was quite good. And also I did a full write-up in my newsletter. It's a Garfield one. You go to moods.bav.com, and I looked at, I really dug into the numbers after the JT Miller trade, and they were just really stellar for Zibanejad. So I think he's priced appropriately, but he's also a guy that I want to be ahead of the field on. So Miller, Zibanejad, Cooley is definitely where I'm leaning at this moment in time. Any interest in Adam Fox at 6,500? When you look at defense on this slate, it's Kel McCarr, Adam Fox, and then Erik Karlsson at 5.1K is the third most expensive D-man. So is Adam Fox, you think, a guy that you're willing to play over Kel McCarr, or is this really only a guy you'd play in lineups with McCarr in terms of there not being much separation between their two price tags? 7,500 for McCarr, if I did not say that.
I mean, I don't like the price entirely, but if you're stacking the Rangers, he is one of the most integral parts of their offense and power play. Like the puck flows through him and Panarin at the point. I think if you're stacking the Rangers and you're leaving him off to try to get in McKinnon or McCarr, I feel like you're kind of galaxy braining yourself in a way. Because I think, Fox's 3-point potential in a situation where the Rangers are the pieces you need to have are really high. So I'm including him in Ranger stacks. I'm not one-offing him. I'm not mini stacking through Fox. It's probably a piece I'm putting in my 4, 5, 6-man Ranger stacks.
Okay. Obviously Igor should get the start for the Rangers here. Moving over to Colorado, right off the bat, thinking of goalies, Mackenzie Blackwood will not travel with the team, so Scott Wedgwood will start for them. So, if you care about goalies, I don't. That's just tried and true.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though, even saying that, if you have a lot of Blackwood and Bestbuck, it's like he practiced today. It's like, yeah, he's not traveling. And it's like, okay. But I think he'll be back within a week. So, I wouldn't be too nervous about drafting him or taking him in fantasy circles. But yeah, night one, who cares?
Lehkonen, McKinnon, Nachas, Landeskog, Nelson, Nichushkin is what we were expecting. I will say I was surprised to see today that Lehkonen was on the top power play ahead of Nichushkin. They had that reversed for the last couple of weeks. So I expect that to fluctuate throughout the year, but just keep that in mind when you're building that Lehkonen, McKinnon, Nachas are perfectly power play one correlated. They sum up to 20.2K. I will talk about LA in a second, but I think we both agree that we both respect LA, I think, more than the average bear does, especially given the way that their offseason was discussed. So I think I'm going to be light on Colorado, not knowing what ownership will look like. But if I were to go somewhere, this second line of Landeskog, Nelson, Nichushkin is 14.1K. Brock Nelson at 4,700 feels like an elite one-off. He's the only guy in their power play, obviously, so you could stack him. You could play him one-off. You could stack him, with a Nachos or something and try to use that money elsewhere to just hope that McKinnon doesn't score the goals, basically. And you don't die from 20 from him if you get 25 from a Panarin or something like that, who you couldn't otherwise afford. So just some thoughts there. Any interest in the power play 2 candidates here? I will also mention that in practice, they ran a 5-on-3 unit that featured Victor Olofsson and Gabe Landeskog with McKinnon, Nachos, McCarr. So if we get to the really fringe outcomes in the game, they could be on the power play in a 5-on-3 situation.
Yeah. I get the Olofsson play for sure. Like you're kind of alluding to. I think the reason to play in Olofsson like that is I think he could be the sixth man over the board with his shot. So you could kind of, if you're going to game stack it, include Olofsson as sort of the cheap one-off to make it work. Just assuming that they end up getting him more ice time. He's just not great defensively. So like in a situation where you're just stacking Colorado and no LA, then you're kind of thinking like he's going to get 8 minutes. So he better score one of those goals early on. But it makes sense. Like Drury, Colton, and Olofsson is like a very legitimate third line in the NHL. That Chicago would dream of having a second line that good, I feel like. So I have no issue with taking a look at those pieces down there. But I think more than anything, I really agree with the Brock Nelson take. Like if you ended up with a lineup that had McKinnon and Brock Nelson in it, I don't think you're wrong at all. And I don't think it's going to be ultra popular with other centers that, we mentioned Bennett at 6K. We mentioned Bedard at like 6K. Like a lot of guys that feel sexier than Brock Nelson, but in a window where McKinnon was the guy you had to have, it could be coming through the power play. And I really like where Nelson's going to be on that power play to have some looks. The last year it wasn't really clicking. Part of the reason really Rantanen left is because it felt like there was maybe changes that needed to be made. But McKinnon, hopefully, if he's not, shooting pucks wide of the net, is dishing it to Nachos, and then they're moving it to guys that can actually score.
Yeah, it does feel like whoever Brock Nelson or Olofsson has a chance to sort of replicate even partial production of what Rantanen did, in a way that they never really used Nelson like that last year. They just kind of ran this awkward mishmash of Nichushkin, Lehkonen, and they didn't really have the juice. Obviously, Druin was a part of that too, but injuries and whatnot. So I'm interested to see if Nelson, takes it and runs, or if it's more of a back and forth between he and Olofsson. So we'll need to be cognizant of it. Ross Colton was very good for Colorado last year. These stats don't include the time where he started the year on the top line, or I guess these expected fantasy point stats don't include when he started on the top line and scored like 1 million goals in the first 15 games of the year and then got hurt. I don't remember the exact numbers, whether it was 10 or 5 or whatever, but he spent some amount of time on that top line and just smashed with all the injuries they had to start last year. So him being in the bottom 6 feels like a luxury. The price is right enough. Again, just not really the matchup that I want to target personally. And then this fourth line is whatever. Bardakov, they like. He came over from the KHL, looks fairly good based on his KHL stats, but I don't think there's anything that you're missing out given who he's playing with. And then finally, Brent Burns, 3,500. He still shoots more than, the average defenseman. But if that's all he's offering in a limited role, you have some problems. We could see them split power play time though, with Landeskog back, Nichushkin there. Like they might actually do like a, true AB type split rather than like the 80-20 that we've come to expect. But that's just guessing based on how much respect they have for Landeskog. So I don't know. Burns is whatever. I don't really care. Let's wrap it up with LA. Okay. Let's wrap it up with LA. It seems like Alex Laferriere is healthy. He practiced today, so I'm expecting him to play. Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Kempe, Laferriere, Byfield, Fiala, Moore, Deneau, Fogle, pretty much the exact same team that closed last year. On defense, we have Mikey Anderson, Drew Doughty, Joel Edmondson, Brant Clark, and Brian Dumoulin, Cody Ceci. Those are the 2 new additions replacing Gavrikov and Jordan Spence. I do wonder how that'll go, but against a Colorado team without much depth to punish them, I don't think this will be the matchup that exploits Dumoulin and Ceci. So any thoughts on LA?
I just, again, maybe we'll reiterate how much water I plan on carrying for the Los Angeles Kings to start the season. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, right? But I do, like, you read off this team, and it's like, where is the hole other than, like, half, like, not even half, like, just the third pair on defense? I mean, even Turcotte, Armia, and Mala are like, that's a line, right? I mean, I do not know where people are going to be negative on this team. Like Deneau, Fogle, and Moore are a great shutdown third line. Really, many consider the second line. Byfield, Fiala, and Laferriere. Like, who was it? Was it Kaprizov? No, it wasn't Kaprizov. Maybe it was Bolt. It was one of the guys I feel like on Minnesota that mentioned him as like the best defensive forward in the NHL.
Who was
to go
that?
along with, I thought there was a player that was going on and on about how good Alex Laferriere was in the NHL.
I must have missed this. No.
I will look it up.
I'll
I
need
will,
to
I will
find it.
find it afterwards. Someone was talking about just how good he was as a forechecker and like just a playmaker in general. And like Byfield, no one is backing harder. Kevin Fiala never leaves the power play ever. Like you can look at this unit and say who isn't going to actually come over the boards. Probably Drew Doughty, and like because Fiala doesn't leave the ice, and it's like I don't see a hole here. I really think they're going to be under-owned comparatively to what they should be. And I respect Colorado a lot. I just talked about how good I think that Colorado team is at the forwards. After McCarr comes off the ice, though, and Taves, the defense it could be exploitable. And I think this Byfield line is not going to see a lot of ownership. If you're talking about punt defensemen, you're like, who are we going to get? Brant Clark. He is 3,400 on the opening night. And I get it. Like maybe not top power play, but if his role is what I think it could be with Stroll Edmondson as his partner, yeah, like he still gets there in DFS, especially at this price. So that's the punt defenseman you want. I'm just very in on the Los Angeles Kings on this slate. I mean, and game stacking this game, like going, full second line with Kempe and Brant Clark, like totally an idea that I think you could run with McKinnon on the other side and McCarr. That's a building, like a lineup build that I guarantee I end up trying to fit in. So I don't even know if I'm ultra strong anywhere here other than I'm probably going to end up with more Byfield and Fiala than the average bear.
Yeah, Byfield versus Kopitar, the pricing makes no sense. I mean, he just should not be cheaper than Anze Kopitar. Laferriere, Byfield, Fiala ended the season getting the most 5-on-5 run of any LA line. So, like, obviously Kopitar and Kempe kill penalties that they do not. So the time on ice, flips in their favor. But in terms of pure 5-on-5 and power play, I think you might actually be able to make an argument for Laferriere, Byfield, Fiala being the top line. So yeah, I really like that that trio. I'm interested to see where ownership lands because again, it's not the best matchup for them at home. Like they're probably going to go out against Nelson, Landeskog, Chushkin, and maybe not. Maybe they get to go against Drury, Olofsson, and Colton because Deneau goes against McKinnon, chases him around, and then I just feel like with Kopitar's last season, they might change how they deploy him. Especially because Kuzmenko's a black hole defensively. So that's like my one fear that I don't necessarily know what to do with. Because their coach is a giant donkey and you can't really predict what he's going to do. So
right.
I think we've said it all. I mean, there's only 3 games here. We can keep this real short, real quick and to the point and get out of here. So do you want to do top stacks, guaranteed goals and close out?
Yeah. I mean, I probably gave it away here, but Byfield, Fiala, Laferriere, like that's probably going to be what I play the most. I just don't think it's going to get a lot of respect. I think people will one-off Fiala and they'll one-off Kempe. I wonder if Byfield finds some ownership. Probably should. At the end of the day, I think that the Florida Slappies are going to be out in absolute full force. The Rangers are going to get just as much, look, and everyone wants to jam in McKinnon, and you can't have all of that come together and play all of the, the donkey plays all in one lineup and still get LA. So I'm optimistic it's going to come in a little bit lower than I'd like, especially because people still think Kopitar can do it. I'm not saying he can't, but I just don't really think he's anywhere near the upside as Byfield.
A core memory for me of last season is Anze Kopitar opening night had a hat trick in Buffalo against the Sabres. So,
who could forget something so sad? Anyways.
Yeah. Oh, the Sabres are going to be great this year. This is their year. And then I think they outshot LA like 32 to 10. It was something ridiculous. And Kopitar scored 3 times, including the empty netter, and they won 3-1. It was like, Sabres, this is cool.
Sabres didn't have Alex Lyon in net. So
Jesus Christ, we're doing this. All right. JT Miller centering Will Cooley, Mika Zibanejad.
Yeah.
I'm going to flag plant that as my top stack of the night. You mentioned Will Cooley being like this up and comer. I really like that. He does sort of profile as like a mini Alex Laferriere as far as like his just on ice involvement is quite high. So even though he's the third wheel that doesn't get the power play one time, he could chip in enough shots or blocks or whatever. Obviously, on Underdog, you also get hits if you're doing the daily drafts there, which helps Cooley and Laferriere for you, large field grinders there in the $7 with Duque to first. So I like that stack. I will be building it into my plans for tomorrow.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, are we doing any more? Because I feel like
let's just do a guaranteed goal from there.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, there's only 3 games, so we have 2 guaranteed goals, obviously.
Yeah.
Which we try to sum it up to 11K cap on DK salary just to sort of keep things, Panarin and McKinnon are going to score. Oh,
Yeah,
great job.
right.
Where'd you come up with that? So that
idea.
is why we're taking some bad plays sometimes.
I went first stack, so why don't you go first goal scorer?
All right, I'm gonna go with Ryan Donato gets on the board here, 4,300 on a line of Connor Bedard. Though he should share the ice with Sam Rinzel at 5-on-5, which apparently means he's God's gift to hockey. But I just really like Donato's profile. I have heavy bags packed with him in season long stuff, and I will be parlaying those into the DFS side of things. And yeah, getting a matchup with a unsure Florida team. We're just not sure what they're going to be without Barkov. I think this is the time to strike on Donato at relatively low ownership for a guy who shoots a ton. And if this team is any good, should be one of their main catalysts, even though he's not on the power play one.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna start with Ricard Raquel. I just, again, a guy that I think is not going to see as much ownership as he probably should. Last year, 35 goals on a line with Sidney Crosby. But I really think that the reason why I like this more than anything is Koivunen. Like, this is a prospect that I feel like is outside of Pittsburgh, is not getting anywhere near the love he deserves. He might be one of the better setup kind of playmaking forwards to come through in this entire class of rookies. No one's talking about him. I think he makes this line quite a bit better than the smorgasbord of options they tried. And then, not to say anything really bad about like a Ryan McGroarty, like, just isn't a setup guy in the NHL yet. Maybe he will be at someday. I think this guy's ready right now. So I really like Ricard Raquel to bury one, hopefully against a weaker Rangers D pair at some point.
All right. I dig that. I am going to buy 100 on, just use Adrian Kempe, 6,800. So sue me, 11.1K. But otherwise, Brock Nelson or whatever is the name that I mentioned liking. But
that was going to be my second.
Okay,
so
cool.
We can still get him in there. I mean,
awesome. I love that.
I have no problem with going with Lehkonen if you really want to break the rules yourself, but Brock Nelson, I think, is just an absolute jam for the goal. I think he's like plus 310. So probably be something I put some money on myself. I was going to look around, do a little shopping, but I did see him at plus over 300. And it's like top power play with McKinnon. You can convince me to bet anybody, but Brock Nelson's a legitimate goal scorer in the NHL. And I think it's just completely forgotten about. So yeah.
Well, DJ, McKinnon shoots 1,000% of the shots on the power play. He doesn't let anyone else play with the puck. So I'm not sure how much that matters.
Like, I love, like, honestly, next time you watch Colorado Avalanche power play, like, really just focus on all the times that McKinnon does something stupid with the puck, trying to set himself up to shoot. Like, he really frustrates me. And I know he's like, I don't know, at least the top 5 player in the NHL. I think like everyone would say that has to be true, but he pisses me off so much. And I feel like the problem is that if you're a Colorado fan, you're just a fan. And if you're not a Colorado fan, you probably don't watch them as much as you should. So non-Colorado fans, I challenge you to watch Nathan McKinnon on the power play and put a check every time he pisses you off.
Well, the problem is we don't play him in DFS like a donkey.
That's also true.
We don't get the 7 shots, 2 blocks, to goal and assists that he just comes preloaded with every night.
It's so frustrating to like wide open back door, and he fires it into the pads wide. Perfect. Cleared. Great.
Well, no, he always hits the goalie. He always hits a goalie. He gets those shots on goal, damn it. But yeah. So to summarize, what did you say for your top stack? Fiala line, right?
Yeah, Fiala.
Okay, Fiala line, Zibanejad, Miller line, and then guaranteed goals were Donato, Kempe, and Nelson, and
Ricard
Raquel. That's right. Okay. So yeah, we will be back on Thursday. DJ, do you know how many games there are on Thursday?
Is it 14?
It is 14. There are 14 fucking games on Thursday. So
wait. I always forget because listen, Friday night, I mean, I'm just Jones to the max. Get a beer in my hand. The weekend's here. How many games can I watch?
Put your feet up, buddy. And then turn on some Netflix because there are no professional hockey games on Friday night.
He shoots, he scores.
Maybe Gavin McKenna's playing and we can watch it on the NHL YouTube. So
yeah, one day.
What a
Again,
league.
What just you sometimes you just scratch your damn head. You're just like, and like it's not like there's something going on. I mean, there's just gonna be no sports on Friday night, and they're
All
like,
right.
nah, we're good. All set.
So the final plug, I will also be doing a newsletter write-up for the Wednesday slate. There's 4 games on Wednesday, so that'll be up on beehive.com. Please do subscribe. You'll get emailed whenever I post anything new. And also tonight, I will be posting my season preview, where I go through the league and I write about what could go wrong for every team in the league. Everyone takes this positive, flowery spin. Oh, the Sabres are going to be great. They're going to make the playoffs. And I just look, I pick apart each team. Hey, what do I like about each team and how can it go wrong? Or vice versa. What do I not like? What do I not like about this team and how can I point back at it and say, hey, I was so right about that. So that'll be coming out tonight. I will be jamming in some drafts and doing some writing. And yeah, you can follow me at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. And make sure if you're in the Best Puck Streaks, you check out Davis Maddox video from today. I drafted a Best Puck team with him, which was fun. I've never done a stream with Davis before. Davis was literally one of the first people I listened to in the fantasy space 10 years ago now. I was a college kid, he had just graduated college. So it was really cool to actually finally talk to him. I've got to razz him in the Swoley's chat that, I've been on a show now with Pete and Davis, and I was literally a bit nervous to talk to Davis, and I was not nervous at all about Pete. Just, the way that I am and just the way that the history of it has gone. So I got to make sure I mention that, all part of that kitchen tree. So anything you want to say, DJ?
No, I am a branch of a branch of a branch on the kitchen tree myself. And the problem is some branches bear fruit more than others. That's me. But
some of them bear championships. Yeah. That's
congratulations to I'm actually really excited to watch that now. I did not. Normally I feel like I try to let you talk a little bit, but I talk way more, as is shown by most of the podcasts. So you probably wanted to tell me. I just was talking over your potential, but we will be back for the Thursday slate. I can't wait to continue to talk hockey all the time. Football's over. Hockey season's here. Matt, why don't you close us out as you always do?
Thank you all for listening. From Doug, from DJ, from myself, have a good opening night, everybody, and we will see ya.
You're saying they're looking like an idiot.
Well, is that any different than normal?
This is the first time I will admit was unbelievably wrong.